here?
I promise that's the last one.
Okay. We do have headshots happening here. So either if you want to update your headshot, if you've been a member, or if you're a new member, you are required to get it. Okay, so he'll be out here until 12:15-ish. You can hop out anytime and get that taken care of if you want to, okay? Lunch around noon.
Point of clarification, Kevin, just we did some more looking into that. It's not a header code. The process is for a call taker to add into the type of work field, report unknown facility.
There's two different things. So you're out there digging and you come across a facility you don't know. There's one process for. Or like what I'm thinking you're thinking is you get out there and there's some kind of a physical thing that allows you to think that there's a company here that wasn't on my ticket and I want to add. Is that the kind of thing you're thinking about?
I mean, there's multiple ways to go look at this. What I was curious about is how OUNC OAR Concepts was collecting that notification. It sounds like it's going into a variable language field, which we have no insight on. There's no way to pull out that activity and say, something happened here. And that, I think, is a shortfall for giving insight for the benefit of how the rules are being applied, but also, how the system is being used. So I'm concerned that we don't have the level of detail yet based on what you're telling me. It just goes into a variable field. Okay, that's.
So we have a specific procedure for our team, so we can point to the procedure and apply it. Like, so you can search that type of work field for unmarked line. It's emergency unmarked line is what's going on there. So we just did that for last month, and there's 10 of them that showed up. They go out as emergency tickets, and in the type of work, that's what's in there. So we can create a header code for that, and that would make it searchable. Of course, we'll have to test that with all of our members again, so there's time and inconvenience there, but.
And
Possible cost. I mean, we took away headers to simplify some messaging, but if we're not, as a board, getting that readily available data, and we have to go through a search process and use keywords, that's not data analysis.
But the other process is, I'm here, I see a pedestal, this company's name on this pedestal, but they're not on my ticket.
Correct.
And you can add that member to that ticket. That's a different process, and that was the process I was talking about.
Right.
When a district is added or a member's added, that flags database to reach out to them.
Right. And we have a hard time it's handled through a process, but we don't have a data point as to when that occurs in a searchable manner. So.
There is, but probably not for you. We could figure it out to get to it. It wouldn't be useful to you.
Yeah, in most.
Yeah, if you request that, we can get it to you right away, but we would look at our CDPs and call taking procedures and then do a search based on those requirements and expectations. Is that something the board is interested in creating?
No, that seems like a very involved process for you to do. I think if we take a look at the header and just flag this as being this is not, this is a notification, that's a simpler way of looking at it. Putting you guys through that analysis, I can see the water carrying that is quite full.
I mean, honestly, I can pull right now that.
It may not be that.
Maybe talk offline on it.
Okay.
Maybe I need some more understanding on it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Sorry.
You're good. No, you're good.
So, just want to clarify that.
Are we over the 12 minutes?
There were 69 of them last year. Those facilities marked, unmarked, emergency tickets.
Searching variable language.
Correct.
Okay, thanks.
All right. So we're rolling into the treasurer's report. What?
So Josh has sent out information, and I know there was 2 items from the OCC report that are miscalculated or incorrectly recorded. So Josh is going to go through the whole report for us to let us know what's going on.
Yes, so thank you for the flexibility in moving things around so we can hear from Nate. We were hoping that we'd hear back from the bookkeeping company. They're our accounting firm that helps us out with all of our books, and we didn't hear back from them on an issue that we identified as part of the process of going through the service tariff analysis. Scott, Nate, and I sat down, and it jumped off the screen at us that both our revenue and our expenses for the month of December were wrong. And my theory is they put our expense cost of the contract for December as revenue. And then the amount that they did put in the contract is woefully wrong. It's like $40,000. And so we know that cost is $100,000. And I think based on ticket volumes, we should land somewhere around $140,000 on the revenue side. So when it comes out in the wash, it's really only a $20,000 difference, but we can't close out our books until we have certainty. And it also affects our carryover and various, so it's a domino effect. But that's the long and the short of it, and we'll update the board as soon as we know. But revenue as it stands was within 3% of adopted. I think, like I mentioned, once you add that 40,000 in, if I'm correct, it should be closer to what we anticipated. Expenses were under by 9%, and that's very artificial in 2 ways. One, that the correction hasn't taken place, but 2, we had a significant arrears payment that is still scheduled to happen that kicked to 2024 instead of being paid in 2023. The overages from last year have already been discussed because we saw those coming. One was a payment to OUCC for joint state support. That was a 2022 cost that we incurred in 2023 that was not in our budget. Risk insurance and staff and payroll costs were higher than anticipated. Biggest cost savings were administrative and meeting costs. That's in large part because we went from monthly meetings to quarterly meetings. Training and education and travel. In-out ratio we've already talked about, but you can see that 5-year decline. We talked about the PGE factor, so I won't go into detail on that again. And nice, there we go. For 2024, we had a slow start with the weather-related impacts in January. That brought our inbound tickets down 6.31%. Outbound were only down 0.56% in large part due to those double tickets. Already talked about the 35,000 buffer. With certainty on our numbers, we'll submit the supplemental at the April meeting to account for any corrections, carryover, and arrears payment. And I have a meeting on February 22nd with PERS, and then a subsequent meeting with DAS to determine that full arrears payment, and then a path forward on service provision if DAS is going to be our service provider for payroll. And then that would also prompt the invitation to bid for accounting services. The total cash on hand is currently at $595. The target is $600,000. After we pay the arrears, that number will drop. We're proposing, we've talked about the tariff rate. We are also going to be asking for the board to approve an ad hoc committee to review the notification center contract, even though it expires in December of 2025 with an optional 1-year extension. Nate said, based on previous experience, it's a long-term project to tee that up. So even if we're looking for a 1-year extension, which puts us at December 31st, 2026, the work begins in 2024 to get ready for that process. So it's just something that we're getting ready. Possibly shifting Riverview CDs. Right now we have certificates of deposit with Riverview and UNCOA we already approved to shift to the local government investment program. Riverview would be next. So that's something we'll ask for in April. So with that, I'll open it up to questions and ask for a motion to approve the treasurer's report, but to hold on presenting corrections or the pending corrections for financials.
Should we just wait
We can,
until we get the actual report?
yeah, that's an option.
Is
We're
everyone,
meeting
are
again.
we okay with that?
Any other questions?
I do have a question. So, Nate was suggesting an ad hoc committee for, call center contract, and it's just the call center contract.
Yep.
Okay. We have, what, 3 other contracts that we're associated with? We have the locator training,
Publicity,
we have publicity,
locator,
and bookkeeping company.
yes.
So I honestly have no idea what those contracts are about.
Okay.
And would it behoove us to make that an ad hoc committee for contracts?
That's what it used to be. So we could do that.
Because I think it would be good just to look at those other contracts to see exactly what's happening with them, where we could possibly change the contract a little
That
bit.
makes sense to me. And then one other thing that just made me think of, I'll create a folder on the board resources that has all of our contracts in it. So if you wanted to go in and review our existing contracts, you can go in there and see those, because I don't think those are in there now.
Mhm. Yeah, because I think, honestly, I think we've just signed off on contracts. You know, like with the bookkeeping company, I don't think we've ever really reviewed them per se.
I think that's a good suggestion.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
direct your attention to the policy and procedure manual. Yep, chapter 4, procurement processes, contracts for services. Says the call center contract and any contract for services over 150,000 will be competitively bid. Contracts for services in excess of $10,000 will be competitively bid. The competitive requirement is satisfied by soliciting proposals from at least 3 bidders, and deviation is documented on a case-by-case basis. So we have a process for contract review built into our policy and procedure manual now. And that comes to the full board for approval of the one call concepts contract. Anything else would be approved through the executive director unless it's in excess of $5,000, and then it needs to come for full board approval. We have that already built in. So setting up an ad hoc committee that would study those contracts more closely, I think we're gonna take the board further away from our defined process. The goal was that contracts are reviewed by the board as a whole.
Correct, over 100,000. Yeah.
Well, I mean,
150,
even if we have to approve above Josh's spending authority, so really anything above $5,000, we're reviewing as a board.
But I don't know if we are reviewing them.
Right.
That's what I'm getting at.
And my suggestion is setting up a committee that would have recommendation responsibility, especially when we're talking about fiduciary responsibilities. Really, that should be the board as a whole that's reviewing it. So I'd say, unless we're gonna change our policy and procedure manual to establish a committee process where we're deferring our authority to that committee for that review, we really need to keep that at the board level.
So you're saying that the contractor, I'm just throwing this out because this is the one that's in my head, is the contractor locating? We would put that up on the screen and go through it here? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, it would be reviewed by the entirety of the board and approved by the entirety of the board if it's above $5,000.
Interesting. What do you guys think about that?
If that's what our policy is, it makes sense to just continue down that road and I'm not opposed to ad hoc committees. I don't know a lot about doing it on this board, but I sit on other boards, and when you're throwing big dollar items that it's gonna be a huge portion of the board's revenue, like it should be reviewed by the board as an entirety and not have 5 people go deliberate and be like, well, this is how we interpret it, because it needs to be, everybody's interpretation needs to be the same before we're done.
So would you guys be okay if we took like an hour or so to go through contracts and do that?
8 hours?
No, a contract. A contract.
No, there's a few contracts.
There's a few, but I mean,
It would be based on when they come up for renewal, I would
Right.
think, or when we have to send them out for bid, right? There'd be a schedule of contracts, which Josh certainly could produce for us.
Yeah, and we do, I will say, we do for the locating contract we brought to training and education.
Yeah.
And did bring to the board. For publicity, we'll take to publicity committee, and then we'll bring that to the board. And so I do think we can work within the process that we have now, but I think the ad hoc contract committee for the call center, that might raise to another level.
Absolutely.
We have conflict with our process then, if we're gonna
Okay,
form an ad hoc committee, because the
so let's
process is
kick
meant.
that to April. It's not something that needs to be, we can defer that, and I'll look into that some more. 'Cause I wasn't here for the last one. When I started on day one, it had already been decided.
Mhm.
So
It
I'll
was
need to
well
talk with
deliberated, as I recall,
Micah and some others that,
deliberated.
okay,
Isn't the way we used to do it, there was a contracts committee,
yes.
and those people were saddled with kind of poring over it. Everybody had access to the contracts, and the request was that everybody review the contract.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then they come back with kind of an abbreviated thing, because for everybody to read through an entire contract, who knows how long it's gonna take.
Exactly.
I dragged my finger. And so that's kind of the way that we did it.
there's
So it wasn't like the entire board was cut out of it. Everybody was saddled with making the decision, and we had access to the contract for review ahead of time. But reviewing a contract, it seems like the board meeting, our time is best spent coming in and then having some conversations or debate about what it is that we reviewed with the help of the contracts committee. It seems like an efficient way to do it. Does that seem out of line with what we have in our manual?
It is, because we haven't deferred our, Josh, help me out here, deferred our authority. You would have to defer the authority of the board to review all tenets of the one call center contract. And we are not set up to do that currently.
Can you read that? Because I was thinking to myself, it just essentially said it was a threshold on money, right? We set it up as a threshold on money and how we could actually do the process and not.
The process for procurement, yeah. So the refresh my memory, but we did actually put together like blanket RFP template that is used for contracts. So this is the call center contract, and any contract for services over 150,000 will be competitively bid through a request for proposal process. Contracts for services in excess of $10,000 will be competitively bid. The competitive requirement is satisfied by soliciting proposals from at least 3 bidders with and deviations documented on a case-by-case basis. A cost, value, and quality analysis will be documented before awarding general contracts. The Oregon Utility Notification Center will enter a contract with the winning bidder that specifies the services to be completed. The Oregon Utility Notification Center Board of Directors must approve any contract in excess of $5,000 before it is executed for the service. We acknowledge per ORS 279A 025 sub 3 sub J, the Oregon Utility Notification Center is exempted from the following public contracting code. The site call center contract award may be made to the vendor whose bid or offer is responsive to the solicitation and most advantageous to the Oregon Utility Notification Center and its stakeholders, considering cost, value, and quality. Oregon Utility Notification Center reserves the right to reject all bids or offers. A file will be kept with a copy of the request for proposal or any competitive bid service, a list of individuals and organizations solicited for bids, and a bid sheet that lists the bids received by individual and organizations and their respective bid proposal. The contract and justification documentation, such as the selection criteria, will be placed in the file.
Okay, so what is the actual evaluation process? Because we don't have that spelled out. And I think that's what we're missing.
And what were you saying about granting, we don't have it in our rules to grant the authority to a contracts committee to do what?
We can't defer our authority as a board to a committee without putting that in policy specifically. So, and that requires a DOJ analysis on whether or not we can.
What I was saying was not deferring authority to them, but tasking people with a more thorough review. to report back to the board. And then the board votes, right? The authority, the only thing, there is no authority. It's just this group is concentrating more in that area, but it's the board that's voting.
So then why couldn't staff do that?
Do we want staff to do the whole entire evaluation of the RFPs now?
I could, but I think that based on history and how we handled it before, we need board engagement, board involvement on that.
We need
Right.
other people to look at it, because we do.
Okay, then we have to go through a deferred authority process, which we don't have.
I'll prepare something for the April meeting that I'll go through that with, and I'll connect with you.
Maybe we just need to put an evaluation process together and then add it to that, or something like that. Just a word or two in there.
So, just for context, really quick, a lot of this stemmed from the communication and compartmentalization and the time gaps between meetings. Now it's larger, it's quarterly now. From when that committee can get together, I mean, we've even attempted to try to set meeting dates, scheduled meeting dates, that didn't work out. But getting that committee together, to do whatever review they need to, based on everyone's availability, was always problematic. It was always an issue, so we were falling behind. The OCC contract is one of those that, or our locates contract, 811 contract, was always dealt with through the executive committee. So contracts did have a part in it, but I remember it being the executive committee, and then we discussed things in a closed forum as a group as the process went through. So that's how we did it before. The other contracts, we did do it out of the contracts committee, the smaller ones. So,
Okay.
like the locate training.
I think you did presentations, you had
Right.
presenters to the
Yes.
full board
Yes.
of solicitors to the RFP as well.
A good example would be, it's the board that's voting, and everybody has access to the contract, and everybody should review the contract. But what I would like to see out of the contract-specific committee is crawling through, highlighting differences between the existing contract and there's a new proposal, what those differences would be. Just kind of a synthesized, bring value to the group as opposed to having them make the decision.
I'm not arguing the point, I'm just telling you we're not set up to do it that way now. And that we've been advised by DOJ that is a delegation of our authority, because you're looking, even though they're not making a decision, they're making a recommendation. It's not just fact finding at that
They're not
point.
making a recommendation, they're highlighting differences
Then-
between what was and what's coming.
I-
Is that wrong?
No, I just don't know how that fits in the framework of what we've been advised. That's not how we're set up today.
Okay.
Okay, so before we do anything with any sort of ad hoc contract committee, let's
Yeah, I'll
get a
get
little
my
bit more
ducks in a
groundwork on
row, and I'm interested in that executive committee prospect.
Yeah.
Because that's,
Agreed.
if
We
that's
got
what
the
it's
same
going
answer on that though. It's
Yeah,
delegation of authority.
But I want to go back to DOJ to get clarification on that, because that question was about referring business between committees, not about referring to a committee to begin with.
Okay.
So I'll do some more homework on it. It was half, 3/4 baked, wasn't fully half baked, and it wasn't fully baked.
So if I'm looking at two different documents and I notice a difference, do I need delegation of authority to talk about that openly?
What was the question?
We have two different contracts, and you see that one is different than the other, you need to have a delegation of authority.
It's just not how we're set up now. I mean, I'm sorry, there was a lot of detail that came from DOJ on this, that talked about what the board was permitted, what the board was obligated to do versus what we could, through our own delegation of authority, do. And when it comes to, frankly, a contract of the magnitude of our one call center, I mean, that's our number one job. I'm sure Kevin can quote the statute from memory. So I just, while I appreciate the interest in figuring out if somebody else can go through it and negotiate details for us or point out differences, we have to do that within the framework of how we're set up. Or
So
we're gonna change
what's
it.
the path forward?
Josh has to do some research based upon the information we got from DOJ. That has not, we got that late in December, so we haven't had a chance to sync up on that. This was not something I was expecting we would be pushing forward at this meeting, so come to the April meeting with some recommendations.
That's the beauty of starting as early as we are, is there's no immediate urgency since the contract goes through December 31st, 2025, and could be extended to 2026. So this is the time to start figuring it out.
Perfect. I think that's great. I like that conversation. Okay, so that's all I had question wise. Anyone else?
Good question.
Almond, was there anything more for the treasurer's report?
Not for me.
Okay, next we'll go to the officer's report. And I honestly don't have anything. I can't say that I really have anything right now. Because I think I say it throughout the entire, oh, I do have something apparently. What do I got?
You need to, per our bylaws, since it's the first meeting, Johnny, hey.
Oh, hey.
Since this is the first meeting of 2024, you have to confirm that you're appointing all existing committee chairs to continue as committee chairs this year.
Oh, that's right. This is a new thing for us. Okay. Do you have any, do I have to say any certain language?
That's it. Just
Okay.
that you as chair per our bylaws are confirming all existing committee
Okay.
chairs to continue.
So myself as chair for 2024, I am confirming all existing committee chairs as is. They are not changing. Okay, is that it? All right,
Perfect.
okay. That's all I got. I don't have anything to report. I have nothing to report. Okay, Lee?
Yeah.
I take that as a no.
I'm sorry, I don't know if you're speaking, I can't hear you.
Oh, I'm sorry. So we were going through the officers' reports and I was asking if you had anything to share for us.
I do not at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Kevin? That was fast. Okay. Good, you're on.
All right. So, since our last meeting, obviously the weather impacts hit us. Thanks for everyone's flexibility and understanding with the change. We made a tough decision in the interest of safety, but also knowing that many of our members were working 12-hour days and were really stretched. And in some ways, I'm hearing still are, that they're still dealing with the impacts of the weather even now. Mitch mentioned that they did temporary fixes during the storm when trees and everything were coming down and they were having to restore service, and now they're doing the permanent fixes. Lee mentioned that they had a huge spike in emergency tickets and are still dealing with a lot of the after effects of it. It still continues on. Since the last meeting, we've done training classes in Sandy, Hillsborough, and Bend. Bend was the Mid-Oregon Construction Safety Summit, and I'll show some takeaways from that later during the training and education report. We did the budget and service tariff analysis. We'll be sharing some details on the new publicity matrix. This is kind of a vision we've had since Scott was chair to try and get that off the ground. I'm excited to share that with you. Data committee, we talked about the potential for future mandatory damage reporting and enhanced positive response. We're monitoring from afar the sewer laterals issue that's before the PUC that the League of Oregon Cities, City of Portland, and others have been involved with that could have future ramifications for us. The new member orientation, thank you to Scott and One Call Concepts for hosting our new members yesterday. I think everybody except for Lynn was able to be there and experience the call center in all its glory and sit in on some calls and hear how the operators handle some of the incoming. And then Kitty was able to get our proclamation request in for Safe Digging Month, so we're hoping that the governor will proclaim April as Safe Digging Month in Oregon, and we'll make some communications and outreach around that as well. In progress, we have our annually mandated annual report to the governor and legislature, so I'll be sharing that around. Already talked about the service tariff process and outreach. Jessica mentioned our teed up rulemaking. We have the new member orientation. Phase 3 is going to be committees, meeting with the committee chairs to hear from them and have their questions answered. At that point, I think we're going to pivot to if there's any special requests of the new members, and if not, then that will conclude this cycle for the new members. We do need to start looking at recruitment for Scott's seat that expires pretty soon here. So we'll look at that. Contracts, as we mentioned, we've got accounting services once we have certainty from DAS, and then publicity, we'll be looking for a unified contract for that, which will focus primarily on April through October timeframe. More trainings and presentations. With publicity, we're also talking about a video series that we've got frameworked out, and we'll want to initiate that this year. And then start looking at the 2024 retreat at Salishan in July. Board action. Designated authority proposal we're going to talk about in policy and procedures, but that's about being able to nimbly move board business between committees. If you refer an item to committee, the way it's set now, it has to be then sent back to the board before it gets referred to another committee. So with quarterly meetings, that could put things back 6 to 9 months just for a simple decision that could be handled better and more efficiently. Notification center contract we talked about, that'll be deferred to April. Ticket language change is being handled in data and research, so we'll ask you for that in just a bit. One of the questions that's come up recently is, can a non-voting committee member make or second a motion? And that's under review. There's been it's a lot of good discussion about that, but we need better certainty. And that's only come up because we changed our policy and procedures manual last year to require a simple majority to constitute a quorum. It used to be any 2 board members could constitute a quorum, so now this makes it a lot more important to have the voting members in attendance. Clothing allowance increase, we'll talk about in just a second here, and travel budget breakdown and interest is also one that I want to hear from you about. So the first one, very simple. I know it's wordy, but this is a very simple request. Costs have gone up, no surprise to anyone. And we had an allowance when you're a new board member to get your Oregon 811 shirts, jackets, hats of $200, and then you get a $100 annual clothing allowance. Some of the items cost more than $100 now, so you wouldn't even be able to afford one item. So I'm proposing that we increase the amounts to $250 for new members and $150 for annual. And then I also thought we should specify whether or not we allow rollover from year to year, or if it's use it or lose it. Because right now we interpret it as use it or lose it, but it's not in our policy. So that's what I'm asking for from the board, is at least the increase, and potentially to specify that rollover.
Do you budget these things?
Budget?
Yeah, I don't remember them being in the budget.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm okay with it.
I don't think we should do rollover, because then that creates the logistics of having to keep track of all that. I think use it or lose it.
It creates an unfunded liability for future years too. Yeah, okay.
It's unnecessary.
So can we have a motion to?
I'll make a motion to increase the clothing allowance to $250 for new members and $150 for continuation of service members.
Second.
I don't think she's done.
Can I roll over?
And that we should not account for rollover. It is on a use it or lose it basis.
Second.
Okay, perfect. Any discussion? All approved, please say aye. Aye. All Thanks.
Okay, and then I think one of the last items here, this is our travel plan for this year, and I'm willing to move things around, but it's really just trying to work within our budget. We have $25,000 budgeted for all travel this year, and that includes our quarterly board meetings, getting to and from those, and any other trainings that I do throughout the year. And so right now we have OCC is attending the FNCA conference and the Global Excavation Safety Alliance meetings in New Orleans. That's correct, right?
Yes,
Okay.
that's
So we'll have at least through affiliation representation at those. CGA conference is a big one that's in Colorado Springs this year. I'm planning on going. I wasn't originally, but I think there's some items on the agenda there that I should be there for. And two OUNC board members, OCC will be there. And then we have the users group meeting in Florida, which we've always found to be valuable for networking trends and ideas. Looking at 2 staff and 3 board members at that, and OCC will be there as well. And then the joint states meeting is happening this year in Montana. I'm planning on going, and then we have spots for 2 board members. And we can shift things around however is needed, but what I need from you guys, and I'll put it out in the newsletter too, so I can start building a list, is who's at least tentatively interested in attending these, and then we can figure out the details of who gets selected, if it's a full subsidy of paying for all travel costs, or if we're paying for flights, or paying for portions of it. Because I know some of you have budgets for this, some of you don't. We want to make sure that we have an opportunity for board members to be represented at these events. So if anybody's interested, please reach out to me. Like I say, I'll put this out. We don't need to have, the first big one is April, so that's the biggest, because you want to start getting your travel plans in place very soon. But those other 2 at the end too, I'd love to start building a list of who's interested.
If I could just also say for the users group, even though the board's, in this case, is thinking about sending 3 board members, all board members are welcome. You just have to pay your own gas. And we pay for 1 person.
Should we talk about the CGA, just because we aren't meeting again until April, and we should probably figure out who's interested, and then we'll kind of narrow down who's actually gonna show, because those plans do need to be made pretty soon.
Absolutely. Any interest in attending the CGA conference and expo in Colorado Springs?
Lee has her hand up.
Okay.
Hey, Josh, my hand wasn't up because I was interested in going to that. I had a question about when is the joint states meeting in Montana?
It's October 8th to 10th.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, you can, I want to give room and space for the new board members to go to the other events. Thank you.
Thanks, Lee. Jamie, you said you'd be interested.
No, I went to CGA last year.
You've presented the last 2 years, right?
Right.
Are you presenting this year?
I'm not scheduled to present right now. And our company doesn't have the budget to send anybody this year, so.
Gotcha.
But I will mention, I mean, the CGA conference it's all damage prevention focused, so you get every aspect of damage prevention there. The whole conference is, locating, publicity, mapping, excavator training, like, you get all the stakeholder groups in that conference. It's a really good conference.
I put my name in that for CGA.
Great.
They also run their committee meetings during their conference as well. So it's not just CGA conference, it's the committee meetings that they do.
Is there anyone else?
Yeah. If you didn't know. You're fine. Oh, cool. So Kevin, but you wouldn't actually be a assessor.
No one else? Anyone else on the phone interested? No? So.
Okay.
Kevin and Nathan? Kevin Ish
What's that?
for CGA?
I'm already attending, I'm already planning to attend.
Okay.
Great. Well, thanks, and like I say, I'll reach out again, so if you change your mind, and there's probably others who aren't on the call right now, I'll build that list. Speaking of CGA, there's a town hall. Jessica presented the last meeting on BEAD funding and the impacts of the investment boom that's coming for the telecom sector. This town hall is about that. It's on February 29th at 10 a.m., so that'll be in the next scoop as well. So I'll have a link to that. It's free to attend, and I think it's timely and relevant. Letters for members, I put this in one of the most recent newsletters. We had a couple of board members that said it would help if I could provide a letter of support or appreciation to their organization that shows the value that they're providing, because every one of your companies or organizations is making an investment by sending you here and allowing you to spend time in a board meeting. And so that's something I can provide for you. So if that's ever something you're interested, just reach out to me and I'll provide that for you and can send it to your supervisor, your company, whatever. And then we have a photographer here today. So if you haven't gone out there to get your headshot, please do so. It's kind of mandatory for new members, but it's available for any members who want to get a refreshed photo. And since Johnny is here, welcome back. It's great to see you. Can we go ahead and
Yes, let's do it.
recognize Johnny for his service? So I put together some remarks, but if you want to start.
Oh, I'll probably be about the same remarks, but anyway, thank you, Johnny. So Johnny served on our board for two full terms. And he retired, was it fall of 2023? He served on the executive team as the treasurer. How many years was that?
That was just 1 year.
Just 1 year. He also was the chair for the Budget and Audit Committee and also Policy and Procedures. And so he has been here for almost 8 years. We appreciate your time and all the great things that you've done for us. So go ahead.
Well, can I say something? Like you didn't know that I wouldn't, right? But this was one of my favorite board type activities that I ever participated in. I always appreciated the professionalism and the respectful atmosphere. And even during, tough discussions, it could be done without making people feel illegitimate or belittled or whatever. And I always appreciated that. And I do miss the interaction. So.
Thank you.
Well, we miss you too, Johnny. I just wanted to thank you too. When I got started, you were invaluable with your experience and your kind of tutelage of helping me as I was coming in the door. Since you've been here since 2016, and I was starting in 2021, you had a big lead on me, and I really appreciated all the institutional history and insights and advice you gave. I also appreciated at our meetings, you were always asking the right questions, helping guide the discussion in the right direction, even keeled, thoughtful, and you always truly thought to understand the perspectives of others. And then I remember when at one of the meetings, similar to what you just said, you reminded us that conflict and disagreement on certain issues is understandable, but our board must maintain respect for one another and work together for the greater good. So I think if you were in our Hall of Fame, that would be the quote that we have in the picture. So I have the plaque for you. It's our board chairperson. And then grab his placard.
Appreciate it. You guys want to face me? I'll take a picture of you. Oh, okay. Here it is.
Or should I take it out?
How'd you go? Okay, you're on the spot.
Yes, I know.
It's usually what I do.
Wow, that's very nice. Thank you.
Here, let's do this.
Oh, do I get to
You
take
get
that
to
too?
keep your Thanks, Johnny.
Thank you so much.
I'm so glad you
I hope you're safe.
Yeah.
Get the hat too.
Oh, well,
Is that what you have?
That's what I have.
And besides the photographer, which we've already talked about, let's go ahead and take a break, eat some lunch, Photographer is out there. He'll be out there for another 15 minutes, I believe it is. And we'll reconvene at 12:30. Okay.
I wish we did, I haven't seen it.
Okay.
You have to go back into the settings for the meetings.
Okay, that's fine.
Shared.
Because otherwise, I mean, we could just, so you don't have to constantly.
Yeah,
Anyway.
I wanna be the bouncer.
Okay. Okay, calling the meeting back to order is 12:30. I just want to put it on record that that was one of the better lunches we have had. That was amazing. So, thank you, Katie, even though you're not here. Did you get that in the notes?
But it's there in spirit.
It's there in spirit, okay. Okay, so we are gonna head on into the committees, the committee reports. The OAR committee is first, and Jessica is the chair of that. What do you got for us?
The OAR committee has not met, but I thought I would give the board an update on what we're working on. So we have mandatory damage reporting as a concept that's being vetted. As of right now, we have outstanding items that we need the additional cost for tickets from One Call Concepts for putting in the mandatory damage reporting ticket type. And then we're looking for language from all One Call Concept states that have mandatory damage reporting. We have a list of those, so we'll need to divvy that up for individual committee members to go out and grab that. We're addressing the question of header changes, I think, in the data committee, Josh, is that what I'm understanding?
I don't think that was on the agenda in data. If it isn't and it needs to be, we need to refer that over.
Talk to Josh about that.
Yep. Headers.
But that was a idea, and then CGA dirt data for damages with states where they have mandatory damage reporting versus those that do not, see if we actually see a material difference. Second item OER committee is reviewing its definitions at 952.001.0010. This was brought to us by Ms. Lemke. We need CGA dirt data, damages from sidewalk or right-of-way maintenance where excavation was less than 12 inches, and we also need CGA dirt data for damages related to ditch maintenance in support of making a revision to those definitions. So, hoping to get that information here shortly. We'll have a committee meeting before the next board meeting. That is my report.
Thank you.
That last one is on data agenda, but I think I may need to work with you on a concept submission or issue summary for it, because there was questions about what specifically they needed to come up with.
Jamie.
So the publicity committee, we haven't had a meeting since the last board meeting. We do have one calendared for February 27th. But we do have an update. It's a sneak peek of what we'll be reviewing in that committee meeting. The scoring matrix that we've been talking about, the review of all the potential publicity outreach items. There were, I want to say 63 of them that were added to this matrix and reviewed, and huge thank you to Josh for putting this together. And I'll go ahead and hand it over to you because you know it more in depth than I can explain it.
Okay. Yeah, and this is not an intent to do a deep dive on it, it's just to give you some familiarity with it, and it is in your board packet, and it's also in the committee packet for that February 27th meeting. So the idea was, there's a litany of opportunities out there for us to spend our money and our time on, and we needed some way of being able to compare apples and oranges, because comparing a digital only versus a traditional media versus a sponsorship versus a display ad, there's really not a lot of great ways to do that. And so we took it and boiled it down to these 5 categories of, and I'm actually going to go into it right now and see if I can, hopefully this works. This is the real one. But it's searchable, sortable, and it includes pretty much everybody who's reached out to us or opportunities that we're looking at. It's just taking a minute to load up here. Of course, the Wi-Fi is not going to
You
cooperate.
might have to go to the left. There you go.
There we go. Okay, there it is. So, 5 categories that and this is, I will admit, is somewhat subjective, that I went through and scored these, and the committee will have an opportunity to weigh in as well. And now the comments are not showing up. There we go. So impressions and visibility is how many people will see it. 1 equals not many, 10 is lots of people. Next category is cost and logistics. So what's our required allocation of funds, resources, and time? Engagement and behavior, how meaningful is it and will it move the needle? Audience is, are we reaching the right people? 1 is random people, 10 is our target audience. And lastly is metrics, is do we get good statistics to show our effectiveness? And so I went through it. Some of these are general in nature, some of them are very specific, but you can see here it's pretty much everything we have done, could do, and a lot of these are things that other states are doing, like the spokes dog contest, are just some random examples. Jason Williams recently asked us to look into doing outhouse or porta potty ads, truck wraps, CERT events. Frank did a CERT event in Wilsonville last year where he took the Corvette to. So just a variety of, Kitty's been looking into this treasure hunt proposal. So it just gives you an idea of the universe of opportunities that are out there. And if you don't have some kind of a tool like this to be able to compare them head to head and have notes on what they are and what they might look like if we decided to pursue it, it's all in there. And so you can adjust, you can sort it by category, you can sort it by one of the particular areas that you're interested in, and if you wanted to weight metrics over others, you can put a weighting to it as well. But then if you sort by the average score, then it tells you which ones rise to the top. And the intent is not to then say, we're going to immediately invest in the highest scoring prospects, but it tells you which ones deserve more attention than others. So that was the intent. It's a work in progress, and I can tell you now that it's created for future years, it's gonna be a lot easier to populate and update and use as a tool for future decision making. And then I'll go back quickly to slides. Make sure I share the right one. Come on now. Apparently my Wi-Fi is dying.
I don't know, you could have a lot of things open.
I do have a lot of windows open, that's true. Slideshow, front current slides. So I won't go through this whole thing because this is what we're going to be discussing in committee. These are based on that universe of everything under the sun. These are what I'm proposing to be focus on in 2024. So a mix of paid media, earned media, sponsorships, and then the other categories, anything that doesn't fall in those others. So that gives you a quick sneak peek at it. And like any committee, we welcome any and all board members to attend, whether you're a voting committee member or not.
And if you want to be a voting committee member, you have to get a hold of Kitty to be put on that agenda. Okay.
So yeah, that committee meeting, like I said, February 27th, 11 to 12:30, that notice, public notice just went out for that. So if you're interested, go ahead and join in on that meeting where we'll be discussing the matrix maybe in more detail and those additional items that Josh went over really quickly just then. So a lot of good things coming from publicity in the near future. That's all we have, unless you have anything else, Josh.
No.
If I wanted to be copied on DOJ correspondence, do I need to join a certain committee or can I just request?
That's suffices right there, yeah. And any and all correspondence with our DOJ contact, is it? Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, typically, I'll keep the board apprised of any outreach to her, but there's some kind of one-offs, like the discussion about can a non-voting committee member make a motion or second a motion. That's the most recent one.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay, running into our ad hocs. The budget, Tara?
So Nate presented earlier on the service tariff, so I don't have anything else to add to this report. We do not have a meeting set up, but I think we're going to be having one before the next board meeting. That notice will go out once that's scheduled.
Do you have anything on the budget? Just
Nothing
what,
else.
just
I think
what
it's
you
all
said,
been covered.
the treasurer?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Training and education. Mitch, are you on the phone still? No.
He had to deal with a damage situation, he's probably still out there.
Okay.
I do have a quick update from there. Sure. So this was from the Mid-Oregon Construction Safety Summit. Kitty was exhibiting in the exhibitors hall. We had a booth set up next to TC Energy, that's them there. Great event. They found this year it went from 350 in attendance to 250 because of the weather impacts, that even though the weather had gotten better, that meant that the people who couldn't work during that phase had to make up for lost time. So there was one company alone that had 10 members registered to attend that none of them showed up for. So it did hurt a little bit, but a good group. I think I counted at the high water mark around 50 in attendance. And then they provide a scoring afterwards of value. So we got a 5 out of 5, almost perfect, but just missed it. But there were some good recommendations on here. One of them was more examples of real accidents. I think that helps. I always use the 2016 Northwest Gleason example of the gas explosion in my presentation. I'm looking at putting some more examples in there as well. And then also sharing, one of them came up afterwards and said it would really help if you put some dollar amounts on there because that would get my attention. So I think adding that in there as well, of like the financial impact of a damage. And then pulling up an actual ticket online and then bilingual. My Spanish is not good, so I'd have to look at some other options there, but those were some of the recommendations. So that's time well spent. Like I said, we also hit the Oregon Landscape Contractors Association, and then I did one for a boring drilling company as well, and they had about 30 in attendance for that one as well. So it's just making the rounds.
And you're doing the same presentation, is that right?
I've been updating it and changing it since I created it, so just continuing to polish the stone. We're at a point now too where we've scheduled out this year's classes that we're going to do in conjunction with our board meetings. So we've got 3 more that we'll have along with our board meetings this year in Lincoln City, Eugene, and thank you, Hood River. He bailed me out because it was not coming. That's it.
Okay. Policy procedures, Jessica, do you have anything?
Yep, PP has not met, but we do have some updates.
Okay.
So, you remember issue summary 23090035A that we discussed at the last board meeting. This is referral of business between board meetings. We have received some supplemental information and guidance from Department of Justice, so we do need to request referral of that matter back into committee so that we can make some further refinements to that language, because what was presented to the board will not, it is conflicting with that DOJ guidance. So I would, before I move on, make a motion to refer issue summary 23090035A back to the Policy and Procedures Committee for additional work.
Second.
Okay. Any other discussion or any discussion? All approved, please say aye.
Aye.
Jamie. Goes back to committee.
Thank you. And I think, Josh, do you have anything else? Do you want to go over general rulemaking procedure that we're at? Anything else on this?
I'm just checking my notes here to make
Okay.
sure I didn't have anything else. We already covered clothing, committee. committee motions is, we're kicking the can on that. Rulemaking, I have a meeting on March 6th with other rule coordinators on that. And then I want to start, we may also want to start probably a committee discussion about related standards manual and frequently asked question changes as well. So I think that's all for now.
Okay, that's it.
Okay. Hey, Kevin. What's your committee?
This is the notification boundary thing that was thrown in ad hoc before we actually had a concept form and all that stuff. Okay, well, in light of the ongoing information that I'm getting from OUNC Concepts, their presentation on in and out ratios and being tied to notification boundaries, still collecting information on how to proceed with this committee, or if it should be dissolved and moved towards other efforts that this board is doing, whether it be a forensic audit type, would that be more appropriate for that vehicle and use it? Address that issue there with their subject matter experts, because I, as Nate, is learning that there's a lot of factors going into this, a lot of moving parts, and we can get some more information from local concepts that they have readily available, but I think this might be something that would develop a concept form to move this to a different venue, because it's not just about drawing the boundaries out anymore. It's a larger issue. So I'd like to work with, my update is I'm at the point I'd like to work with Josh on moving this to something in a different place.
Got it. Okay. Perfect. Data and Research Committee, Lee.
Second.
Is Lee still on?
She might not be able to hear you.
Hey, Lee. Not Haley. Hey, Lee.
Hey, space.
Lee.
If not, I have
Underscore.
Right.
had the one recommendation out of committee that we covered.
It's in the chat.
Oh, she's having computer issues.
Okay.
So I could cover this while
She's on phone with technology services.
she's looking to connect,
Okay.
just to keep us moving. So the committee, we had a discussion about on tickets, when you look at positive response as it stands now, if someone is not participating in positive response, all it says on the ticket is does not participate. And what I've heard at my trainings and others have had some confusion with as well, so I think Robbie had mentioned and some others have mentioned, they've experienced this as well, that their perception is they see does not participate and they think they don't have that utility does not participate in the 811 system, they don't mark utilities. So Kim, thank you, she's worked through this language with other states as well. Suggested going from does not participate to does not participate in electronic positive response. So a very simple change, but we need to pass that so that we give OCC direction to make the change. I think it'll solve the problem.
So with that, I'm looking for a motion.
I'll make a motion to change the language from does not participate to does not participate in electronic positive response.
Second. Okay, any discussion? Okay, all approved, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, do the same. Okay, motion passes. But do not participate in electronic positive.
Easy to say, huh?
Electronic positive response.
I think we talked about the other topics. She did share this, this was a chart that she shared with me on the emergency ticket tracking for Portland when they were dealing with the weather impacts. So it kind of gives you an idea of the spike there. But that was interesting. But that's all.
Okay, moving on. OUCC is, I didn't see Lynn here. It's not here, yeah. Do you have anything?
We have not met again. Our next meeting is April, the day before Dell's next meeting, so there's nothing new to report.
I should ask you to.
And Casey.
Casey, yeah. Okay. National news. We have CGA conference. Is there anything else?
Just that town hall I mentioned earlier too.
Right.
We'll put that out.
So I just have a quick question in regards to their committees. Do they meet like every quarter? Is that usually what their committees are? Does anyone know? Is there anyone that is active? Oh, you are.
Sorry, what?
You're actively participating in CGA, right?
Yes.
So what's the frequency of their committees?
Well, I mean, if you include their discussion board, it's ongoing and every day. As far as committee meetings, though, they generally have them, 4 times a year? There are special one-off committees that are just being done remote, such as the excavator training advisory committee, and so far that's all been remote. So depends on which committee is meeting. And I believe the one call center committee, I don't know if they meet.
CSI?
Yes. Do they meet in person once a year, or is it mostly
Well,
online?
I think in general, they meet twice a year in person.
Okay. And they just joined that one just to get.
So they will be at CGA, that's their next meeting.
And then they have summer,
They have summer, is that in person?
that's
or is
in
that-
Nashville,
Is that in person?
July 22nd through the 25th.
No.
That's all committees, not just OCSI. And then they have fall in October in Las Vegas, the 28th through the 30th.
And are you guys a part of it? Do you participate?
We do, we either have people in person or virtually attending those.
We try to have at least one representative from OCCs, from somewhere, at each one of the committees.
And the reason I joined is just to get more familiar with the nomenclature of what's going on and the perspective of what other states are doing. And
Most of them can be virtual too.
correct.
And you can join, I think you have to be a CGA member.
Correct.
But you can join remotely without any cost.
Correct.
FNCA is the other group that started up a few years ago that we've been participating in. They also have committee meetings. Their committee meetings in person are going to be at Global Excavation, tied to the Louisiana one. And you can join those virtually as well, but they charge you to participate virtually or in person. There's a charge.
Okay, so you have to be a member to go to a committee or that discussion that you were talking about as well? You said there's an ongoing
That just gives
discussion.
you access. So once you're accepted into the committee, then you have, full access to meetings, the agendas, the notices. You get pop-ups on the chat or their discussion forum. That's how they call it CGA Engage. It's a separate, it's on the CGA platform, but once you're in a committee, then you're logged in as an engagee.
It's like a blog.
Yeah.
Okay. So, we are a part of CGA.
Yeah.
You are a member. Is Kitty a member?
We as an organization are a member, and I think that gives us 3 committee seats, if I remember right. I have to go back and check, but we have available seats if there's interested members.
Okay.
In joining committees. because we could always add to that as well.
Great. Okay, so that is, I mean, we're paying for this too. So if you're interested, get a hold of Josh or Kitty. Anything else in national news? Old business? New business, we have already discussed the ad hoc contract committee, and then for good of the order, we recognize Johnny already. Does anyone else have anything for good of the order?
Quick shout out to Jason Williams with Northwest Natural Gas. He's been sending pictures of large banners he's putting up for 811 at the entrance to new housing developments down in Eugene, Springfield area. And I think he's done 5 in the last week. Very eye-catching. He's getting some good response from those. They're getting noticed. So those are available to others as well. If you're out and about.
Yeah, did we get them for him?
Yes,
Okay. And he paid for them, or did we?
I believe we paid for everything, the production and creation and shipping. So we brought those to other UCCs as well.
Okay. All right, well, our next meeting is scheduled for April 4th in Hood River. The reason why it's April 4th is because CGA is the week that we would normally have our meeting, so we rescheduled. I think that's it. So do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second. Okay. All right, any discussion? All approved, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say the same. Okay, motion passes.
Have invites been sent out for April 4th yet?
No.
No.
Can I put in a request for invites to meetings? Can the address be put in the address line so phones give us traffic updates? If there's traffic jam, we get notifications saying, hey, leave earlier.
Oh, that's a great idea. Send that to Kitty.
Okay.
And ask her, she's the one that creates all of these.
All right.
Sometimes it would be nice to have it a few months in advance so you can look at the calendar too, huh?
Definitely.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, well, I forgot to do that, sorry. I just like to do that.
Thank you.